Hello everybody. 40 years ago, a gentleman called Gary Thurk sent the first ever spam email to 393 recipients. All he got was a reprimand, if only it was that simple today. We're going to be talking about email threats, what they are and what to do about them. My name's Hazel Burton. I am cybersecurity storyteller for Cisco UK and Ireland, and I'm joined by James McNabb, cybersecurity marketing director for EMEA and APJ. James, if you could set the scene for us, why is this such a big threat?
The Cisco cybersecurity benchmark survey that we just completed surveyed 3,200 CISOs across 18 countries, and there was a lot of really good news. Organizations are increasingly using consolidation in terms of the cybersecurity vendors that they're doing business with. We found that 64% of them are using solutions from 10 or fewer vendors compared to 53% a year ago. That's good news because it reduces some of the gaps that typically exist within their solutions. They're also collaborating more. We found that the network security professionals and the cybersecurity professionals are working well together. That similarly reduces the gaps, and they have a high degree of confidence. They have confidence in using the cloud to address some of the challenges that they face. But we did find that 56% of them said that user behavior was a major concern for them, and that connects to the email threat, because as human beings we have a tendency to click on things without necessarily knowing what we're clicking on.
Yeah, it was the number one concern in terms of they finding it incredibly challenging to deal with, more so than cloud security, more so than mobile devices. The number one was user behavior. And I guess one of the reasons is, 40 years ago things were quite different, but today we're seeing a lot more targeted attacks. These emails have context, and they often do go to the recipient that it's intended to go to. Could you talk a little bit about the type of emails that we're seeing these days that have kind of malicious intent?
Yes, we've seen that business email compromise in particular, actually the FBI have advised that business email compromise and email account compromise have resulted in the theft of $1.3 billion in 2018. And if you compare that to ransomware, which was a really big issue very recently, ransomware accounted for theft of relatively modest $3.6 million, so we're not even in the billions. And the reason for that is that business email compromise exactly focuses on this targeted approach, where an individual may receive an email from the chief financial officer. It looks like it's from the chief financial officer, and it provides an instruction to make an immediate payment because the executive team are on an off-site meeting. And so the professional in accounting, of course, recognizes the name and thinks, oh, I better do this straight away, and they go ahead and make the transfer. So these are very effective tactics that the adversaries are using, and they will continue to make their approach even more effective when they're generating results.
Yeah. And normally, and that's something to watch out for, isn't it? A level of urgency within the emails. So that's one example. Another example is, the boss emailing the finance department and saying that this payment was missed. It was part of a series of payments and it got missed, which is going to affect their entire supply chain. I'm going to ring you in an hour to check that you've done it. So it's that kind of urgency to look out for.
Yes, and it's really important, therefore, that organizations establish clear policies in terms of transfers. Most companies don't need to make those kinds of payments within a short period of time. Companies typically have 30 or 60-day payment periods, and there needs to be a proper policy whereby you don't just make a payment because you receive an email. There needs to be a proper sign-off process.
Yeah. Let's talk about a growing trend, which is Office 365 phishing. So this is where, Office 365, obviously an incredibly popular tool for all the right reasons, but attackers have taken notice, haven't they, as well, and they're manipulating the tool.
They most certainly are. Typically, an Office 365 user might receive an email that says your account has been compromised. You need to click on this link and enter your credentials so that we can reactivate your account. So they click on the link and they end up on what is a phishing site, but looks like it's a very genuine Microsoft Office 365 page. It has the right brand, it has the very professional look and feel. They enter their credentials, they receive a message saying, thank you, your account has been reactivated, and they think nothing more of it. In the meantime, adversaries have their credentials and they can use them to access additional Microsoft sites. They can use them to harvest the contacts of the user and then continue to create havoc beyond that single step.
Yeah. So when we're being faced with things like this and things do look legitimate upon first glance, what can organisations do to try and help their employees spot the good from the bad? Are there a few things that people can do?
Well, certainly we would recommend that organisations run their own internal phishing campaigns. That means they can do it in a safe environment. And we do know from Duo, who provide a phishing campaign tool, Duo is part of Cisco, that a quarter of users will typically click on a link, even if it is malicious, and half of them will then actually go to enter their credentials. So we recommend running these campaigns so that you can see what the level of risk is within your organization, and then use that as the basis to establish a more mature cybersecurity culture within your organization.
Yeah, and that tool is free as well, and there's examples of what kind of email to write, and also you can build a website as well to send people to. And Cisco itself, we send regular phishing tests to our own employees to make sure their cybersecurity matureness is good, and they're very targeted. Well, we got one the other day that talked about Cisco's dress code, and click here for the latest policy, things like that. So yeah, they're getting cleverer.
They certainly are, and we would advise users just to always think twice before you click on an email. Does Cisco have a formal dress code? And if it does, would they really send you an email telling you what you need to be wearing? Think about if that makes sense, and if you're not sure, talk to colleagues and say, what do you think about this type of an email? It's always a good idea to think twice before you click.
It absolutely is. Well, all that advice and more is in our latest threat report on email threats. You can access that by going to cisco.co.uk/security reports. Lots of great advice around how to stop email threats. But yeah, thanks for James, and we'll see you soon.